Hey everyone, I uploaded a few questions, review questions that are going to help you on your exam onto Canvas under week 5. Since we didn't have any extra readings or reading quizzes for this week, I just added a few class participation problems and wanted to make a couple of videos too, just explaining how we complete some of these. So hopefully this will help you understand some of these calculations and some of these concepts as we go into having our exam on Tuesday. So this particular question is on mortality rates, and it's looking at the mortality rates for unintentional injuries. So the way these tables are broken down is we have them broken down by age groups, and then we have the all-cause mortality rate, or the all-cause mortality numbers. So that would be all of the deaths within that age group, and then the deaths that can be attributed just to unintentional injuries. And then over here we have the estimated population. You'll see that it's times 1,000. So all of these numbers here, you would actually multiply by 1,000 to get the population estimate. So if we come down here to our questions, you see that I already started number 1. But it's asking about the unintentional injury mortality rate for the entire population. So if we remember, the formula for mortality rate is the total number of deaths occurring over a time period over the total population. And so this is a cause-specific mortality rate. So we're just looking at the number of deaths that can be attributed to a specific cause, which in this case is unintentional injuries. So to be able to complete this problem, I'm going to look at the total number of unintentional injury deaths that occurred, and that would be this 106,742. And then my total population is going to be 288,357,000. So I get that from looking at this number, and then I multiply it by 1,000 to get that population estimate. So then I just calculate it out. So 106,742 divided by 288,357,000. And that gives me a rate of 0.0003717. And so I put a few more numbers in there since we have a lot of zeros before that. So in order to make it a little more sense. So I'm asking for the rate per 100,000, so I'm just going to multiply that by 100,000. And that's going to give me a rate of 37.02 unintentional injury deaths per 100,000. Okay? So, the next question is asking about all-cause mortality rate for the 25 to 34-year-olds. So, this is just a mortality rate as well. However, this is an age-specific mortality rate. So, when we include the total population, we can only include the total population of 25 to 34-year-olds. So, to answer this question, I'm going to use this table on the left again. And the all-cause deaths for the 25 to 34-year-olds is 41,355. And then we're dividing it by the total population of 25 to 34-year-olds. And so that's going to be the 39,928,000. So then that gives me a rate of 41355 divided by 39,928 of 0.001035. And so I multiply that by 100,000 as well. And then that's going to give me a rate of 103.5 deaths per 100,000 25 to 34-year-olds. Okay, and so we're specifying that population. It's not just per 100,000, it's per 100,000 25 to 34-year-olds. The next question is asking about the all-cause mortality rate for males. So in this instance, on the table on the right, we are looking at the all-cause mortality rate for all the males. And so that would be 1,199,264 deaths. And that's divided by our total population of males, which is the 141,656,000. So once I calculate that out, 264 gives me a rate per one of 0.008466. Then times 100,000 again. That's going to give me 846.6 deaths per 100,000 males. Okay, and the last item. What is the unintentional injury mortality rate for 25 to 34-year-old males? So we can calculate out mortality rates that can be very specific, such as this one. So, but it's still the same formula. What is the total number of deaths within the population that we're interested in? So, for instance, the population we're interested in here are 25 to 34-year-old males. And so I can find that number here. So this is going to be my denominator. That's 20,203,000. It's asking about the unintentional injury mortality rate for this group. So there was a total of 9,635 unintentional injury deaths within this population of 25 to 34-year-old males. So that's going to be my numerator, 9,635. Then I'm going to divide that by the 20,203,000. So calculate that out. 5 divided by 20,203. That gives me a rate of 0.004769. Then I'll multiply that by 100,000. And that gives me a rate of 47.69. This would be unintentional injury deaths per 100,000 25 to 34-year-old males. Now, just to clarify, I'm not going to be a stickler for making sure you specify your populations. So just putting down per 100,000 is perfectly fine. You'll get full credit on the exam for that. And just another note I want to make about rounding here as well. You can see I left a lot of numbers on my calculation until I finally got to my final answer, and that's when I was able to round off. So when you're multiplying by a big number like 100,000, if you're rounding that first number off as you go, then you're going to end up losing a lot of information. So just wanted to make a note about that. Also wanted to throw in another question that we could answer from this table. So let's just put in question 5. If I wanted to know the proportionate mortality, what is the proportionate mortality rate for unintentional injuries. Now, I could ask this about any population that I see in the table. I could ask it about any age group that I wanted to, or I could make it specifically just to males. But for these purposes, we'll just include the total population. So the proportionate mortality rate for unintentional injuries in the total population. And so if we remember the formula for proportionate mortality, that is, out of the total number of deaths, what proportion can we attribute to a certain cause? So in this case, out of all the deaths, what proportion of them are attributed to unintentional injuries? So the way we calculate that is the total number of deaths due to the cause over the total number of deaths during that specified time period. And so, for this question, I'm interested in the total number of unintentional injury deaths, which would be 106,742. What was it? 742. And then I'm going to divide that by the total number of deaths in that time period. And so for this, it's going to be 2,443,387. And then I calculate that out. 106,742. Divide that by the 2,443,387. Gives me 0.0437. Now, this is a proportionate mortality rate, and so that should be expressed as a percent. So I'll just multiply it by 100, and that gives me 4.37%. So how we interpret that is, out of all of the deaths that occurred during this year, 4.37% can be attributed to the unintentional injuries. Okay? So hopefully this gives you a little bit better idea of how to calculate some mortality rates. So if you remember that mortality rates are just like incidence. We calculate it as the total number of deaths over the total population. All right? And our total population that's at risk, we include that everybody in that population would be at risk. So we don't have to worry about excluding anybody unless we've defined our population to be exclusive, such as the total population of males or the total population of 25 to 34-year-olds. So hope this helps, and let me know if you have any more questions.